What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I'm going to be doing an updated forecast on where I think the 2020 presidential election is right now. And if you have noticed, I'm on a new computer, so I think everything is a little bit better quality. I hope that y'all like it. And I'm at college right now, so it's a little bit of a change of experience. So this is where I think that the election lies right now. 125 for Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, and 212 for the Democratic nominee. And right now we are in the middle of the Democratic National Convention. I really don't think there'll be as big of a convention bump as we've seen in the past. In 2016, there's a CNN poll that came right after the Republican National Convention that had Donald Trump up 48 to 45 versus Hillary Clinton. I really don't think we're going to see a huge shift in the polls or the betting odds this time around, just because the conventions are online, and I actually think they aren't going to have as much viewership. But so I'm not going to cover the national conventions too much, but I want to focus on this electoral map. First of all, I want to show you what I had. This was 98 days out of the election. I think right now we're sitting around 75 days from the election, and I want to keep on doing videos like this probably every 10 days as we get closer to the election. I do have some changes in the map that I'll let you know later, but kind of the highlights of it. In the Rust Belt, I have it uniformly lean Democratic. And then I have North Carolina and Arizona as tilt towards the Republicans, and Florida as a tilt towards the Democrats, and Joe Biden wins in this scenario. So I have some updates in this video, so y'all should definitely tune in. And also, one thing I wanted to mention right now, I'm at 1.26K subscribers, so 1,200 subscribers. My goal is to get to 1,500 by the end of August. And if you haven't shared my account with anyone yet, please do it now. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button right here. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification if you haven't. I'm really investing in my channel right now. We have 75 days until the election, so I want to give you all the content right here. So let's just dive right in. First, I want to start with the lean Democratic states. This is a change from before. I think Minnesota is going to be a lean Democratic state. And what is actually pretty interesting is on the different models, a lot of the models actually have Michigan as more likely to go to Joe Biden than Minnesota. And I think this is likely due to kind of the turmoil going on in Minnesota. As you know, the Minneapolis protests and riots, of course, after the tragic death of George Floyd. So I think there might be some definitely some anger, maybe at the and maybe a lot of support for the Black Lives Matter movement that might turn out support for Joe Biden. But on the flip side, there might be some other people kind of angry at the riots there. And so Minneapolis is the biggest population in Minnesota. So I definitely think that will have a large effect on the state at large. But obviously, Minnesota isn't the entirety of Minneapolis isn't the entirety of Minnesota. There's a lot of rural counties up here that will definitely affect the election. And Donald Trump became very close to winning the state in 2016. He didn't win it. He says if I would have held a couple more rallies in there, he thinks he could have won it. But I think it's going to be harder for him to win Minnesota in 2020 than in 2016. So next up, we're going to the state of Nevada. I don't think the Trump campaign will put too much time and energy and money into the state, because this is a state that they lost in 2016, and the polls actually had it neck and neck between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but the polls in Nevada have historically overestimated the Republican candidate. It happened in the Senate elections in 2018, and so although Trump is within striking distance in Nevada in the polls, I really think that we will see the same thing again, and especially since Nevada is doing universal mail-in voting, even though they've never tried it before. I definitely think this will help the Democrats. Just in terms of that, I think more Democrats will vote by mail because they don't want to vote in person. The coronavirus has gotten very, very political. I'm not saying that there's going to be massive voter fraud in favor of the Democrats, but I think having mail-in voting will help the Democrats because I think they will be more likely to vote by mail because some might be just too scared to vote in person. Next up is the state of Michigan, and like I said before, I do think that Michigan will be a lean Democratic state. This is not a change from my perspective before. Trump has actually pulled out funding from the state of Michigan, so I think this could very likely turn to a likely Democratic state later. If we look at the Nate Silver 2020 election forecast, we can see that on the list of things we actually have that New Hampshire, Nevada, and Minnesota are more winnable for Donald Trump than Michigan. So Michigan is more of a safe state for Joe Biden. And if we look, we see that Biden has an 82% chance to win. That's how we interpret it. And the popular vote estimated on Nate Silver's website is 7 points. So I still have it a little close. I think it's going to be 5 and under, but I think it's right on that lean to likely threshold. So I'm definitely going to be looking at the state later. Next up is the state of New Hampshire. This is another state that Donald Trump came very close to winning in 2016. It was the closest state in terms of raw votes. He only lost it by a couple thousand. So, but however, it's still only 4 electoral votes, and I don't really see the Trump campaign making a play for it. I really think that the Trump campaign is going to spend all their money in the states that they won in 2016 just to hold their base. We saw them pulling money out of Michigan, which I think will also mean they're going to pull money out of New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Nevada for now until their poll numbers stabilize in some of these states that he won in 2016. Next up is the state of Michigan, or this is the state of Wisconsin. We've seen it in the polls that it is about at the same spot as it was in 2016, which definitely means that Donald Trump can win it. However, I think that these polls have kind of fixed their methodology some, so I do think they will be more accurate. In the 2018 midterms, the Republicans did better than expected, but they still lost statewide. Scott Walker. I think there will be a large effort by the Democrats to win Wisconsin because I think they will see it as a state where they can win. They held their Democratic National Convention there, or I mean, even though it was online in Milwaukee, that was their goal. And I have seen reports that Trump is actually pulling more money out of Wisconsin and putting it more in Pennsylvania. So I will definitely be interested in what the polls look like, what the internal polls look like if the Trump campaign or Biden campaign releases them, because those were a lot more accurate. Or the Trump's campaign's internal polls were a lot more accurate than the actual polls in 2016. So we can see if we can get any leaks of that. Now I'm going to move to the lean Republican states, and I want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now because I'm really trying to grow my channel, and I would really appreciate if you subscribe and you get notifications of any of my new videos. So I think Iowa will definitely be a lean Republican state. I would classify Iowa and Michigan kind of on the same level in terms of like how they are, but just with the blue and red. I think Iowa could definitely turn into a likely Republican state as Trump kind of stabilizes and improves in the polls, which I think he will do a little bit coming to election day. I'll do future videos on like kind of why I think this overall like, campaign strategy. Right now, I just want to focus on the electoral map. Trump won this by I think about 10 points in 2016. I think he will do a little bit slightly worse. However, I still think he's going to win in the state of Iowa. I don't think his base is going to leave him. And Iowa, if you look at the state's demographic, it's over like 95% white or 95% white. So, and a lot of like blue collar working class population. It did vote for Obama twice, but politics have just completely changed. I definitely think Trump will be able to appeal to the people of Iowa more than like a Mitt Romney type candidate. Same with the state of Ohio. Some polls in Ohio have had Biden up. I think now it's about tied, but I mean the polls were pretty much wrong in 2016, so I don't really expect the polls to be entirely accurate in 2020. I definitely think that Trump's support in Ohio is going to be pretty similar, so I'll definitely want to look at that later. Next up is the state of Texas. There's been a lot of talk about will Texas go blue. I just saw a poll out of Texas that had Trump and John Cornyn on the Senate level up by 7 points. I don't think Trump will be able to win by that much. However, I really don't think that the Biden campaign is going to focus a lot of money here, and I really don't think they should. I think that Biden should definitely just shore up the Rust Belt states, make a play in Florida and Arizona maybe, but there's no need to go for the blowout punch because a win is a win. And I think that the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016 tried to get cocky and invested a lot in states, even like in South Carolina. I saw it was so pointless and it backfired horribly. I think the Democrats, the DNC, the Biden campaign don't want to make the same mistake again. I think Texas will be a pure swing state in 2024. But I think in 2020, the Republicans, there's more registered Republicans in Texas than registered Democrats. And I think it's going to change pretty soon as the demographics change, as people start moving from California to Texas and a lot of these northern states because the Texas economy is doing well. But I think for one more election, they'll be able to hold on. The Republicans will be able to hold on. So next up, going to the tilt Republican states. I think that North Carolina right now is a tilt Republican state. If we looked on the predicted maps, North Carolina was previously a tilt Democratic state. It has changed to tilt Republican, which I think is where it was all the time. But I think the polls are now starting to reflect that more. We have seen that Trump is up in some of these polls. I've seen +1, +2 towards Trump in North Carolina. I think that's about where the actual election results will be. He won by 3.5 points in 2016. And I don't think that Biden will be able to improve on Hillary Clinton's margin by more than 3.5 points. Next up, we're going to go to the state of Georgia. I actually do think Georgia will be tilt Republican too. I really think that Georgia and North Carolina are going to track each other pretty closely. And people might be surprised by this because Trump won Georgia in 2016 by a pretty significant margin, and North Carolina was definitely closer. North Carolina was classified as a swing state, while Georgia really wasn't. But I think that the demographics in Georgia have changed a lot more than North Carolina, and we see that the 2018 midterms where Stacey Abrams almost won. So I think that result is definitely a representation of how that state has changed. So next up, I want to go to Pennsylvania, and I want to focus on Pennsylvania for a little bit because right now I really think it is the turning point state or whatever the term is for it. I think that Florida or Pennsylvania will be the most important state in 2020. And the reason why I've changed this classification from my other forecast where I had Pennsylvania as a lean Democratic state, I think the Trump campaign is going to invest heavily in Pennsylvania. I think that is the state that they're going to spend their most money on. It's probably going to be pretty close between Florida and Pennsylvania. But the Trump campaign does not need Trump does not need Michigan or Wisconsin to win. He can win if he wins Florida, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. I think right now, if we look at the forecast right here, this the snake I was looking at it just before, we see that Pennsylvania is the tipping point state. Yes, that's what I meant. So if Trump can just win Arizona, Florida, and Pennsylvania, then he has won the election. He really doesn't need to invest in states like Michigan, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Because Trump is the underdog, I really don't think he's going to be spending his money in states that he really doesn't need to win. And that would just kind of be icing on the cake. I do think Biden is going to invest in some of these states just to kind of show like he is the winner and it's not as close. But we can see that Pennsylvania is to the right of states like Wisconsin and Michigan, which is pretty interesting because I really think that the Trump campaign is going to heavily invest in this state, especially in the rural areas, to try to drive up turnout. So right now I have Pennsylvania as a tilt Democratic state. It's going to be within 2 percentage points. Next up, we are going to move to Florida. Right now, I still classify Florida as tilt Democratic. This is how I've had it since kind of, I would say, June when the coronavirus hit and coronavirus really hit Florida hard. At first, it kind of dodged Florida. Florida kind of dodged most of the coronavirus, but the second way that people were talking about really hit there. And I think that Ron DeSantis could have handled it a little better. I mean, obviously, Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo in New York definitely, I think, kind of failed in this coronavirus response, even though media kind of credits him for being the superhero. I really do think this narrative is wrong. I do think that Ron DeSantis also failed. I think he probably did a little bit better than Andrew Cuomo, but I think that um, maybe some of the more elderly folk who might be more scared about the coronavirus might not vote for Trump. We see in the polls that the elderly vote is completely tied, which is not good for Trump because Trump won the elderly vote, like the senior vote, like 65 plus, and this is kind of typically how Republicans do in the state of Florida. So unless the polls change significantly in Trump's direction, I still think that Florida is going to be a tilt Democratic state. The polls right now, I'm pretty sure on this forecast, the polls still have Biden up by 5 points, and this is including like 50% of the polls, or 49% of the polls, and 51% of demographics and past voting patterns. Past voting patterns would suggest that Trump has a better chance than the polls reflect. So that's why I think it's within 3 points here. But the average of the polls on 538, I can look it up later, is about like 5.2 points, and Biden is at like 50%. So Hillary Clinton never got over 50% in a lot of these states. But in the state of Florida, Biden is doing that. And I still think it's going to be within 2 points because it has been for the past like 5 or 6 elections. Florida is always close, so you never want to count anyone out. But I think right now that Biden holds a substantial advantage there. Right now, I think Arizona is a pure toss-up. It really is. I actually do kind of want to look at it on the 2020 presidential forecast that Nate Silver has. Right now, they have Biden as a small advantage. We see the polls are kind of going either way. Because of the Senate race right now, I'm going to classify it as a tilt Democratic state, which is different from before when it had as a tilt Republican state. But I was really it really can go either way. So right now, I think that Mark Kelly will be able to help Biden, but really, I've really classified it as a toss-up. It's going to be within one percentage point either way. I'm pretty confident. And right now, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I don't think it's important. I think that the second district in, Maine is going to be a tilt Republican state, and the second district in the state of Nebraska is going to be a lean Democratic state. So right now we see 319, 219. I've had this scenario before. That's where I think it is right now. One thing before I leave this video, I do want to show you the betting odds of the election right now. They have improved a lot in Trump's favor since I did my last video. So as we can see before, it was up at like 24, plus 24 for Joe Biden. Right now, we're as close as 14. So I think Trump is closing the gap. There was a CNN poll that had the national popular vote within 4 points, 50-46. If it's within 4 points, I think Trump wins just based on the electoral college. And we can see in my latest prediction, all Trump has to do is if he overperforms where my estimates are right now by 2 points and he flips Arizona, Florida, and Pennsylvania, then he has won the election. So that's all he has to do. I think Nate Silver is right. Trump should not be counted out right now. But I think it is ignorant to say that like Trump is definitely going to win or it's a 50-50 shot. I think Biden definitely does have an advantage right now. So I really hope y'all like this video. I'm sorry it was a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I really hope you like my new computer and the change of scenery. So please reward me with a subscribe, a like, a comment, everything. So thanks, guys. See you later.